The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
I'm not giving away any names by mooting this or raising this subject because I'm sure other people are in the same situation. But I have a friend who's got a wedding, and I'm going to say they so I don't even identify the gender of this person, are concerned that the client has gone well over on the numbers that they're supposed to have. Would you do it?
It's really, really, really tough, isn't it? Because
this should actually be one of our not phoning out one of our writing questions, but it's not. It's something that I'm mooting to you now because I don't know how to answer this question because part of me is screaming, saying no, but part of me knows that this person would rather like to be working.
Do you know what I would probably do to help me make a decision? I'd ring my insurance company. I'd ring a dookie and I'd say, look, I've got a wedding. And I know that they're going to be effectively breaking the law.
Yeah.
Where do I stand insurance-wise?
Well, you know what they're going to say, surely.
That's what I'd go back with the clients for. I think that's how I would kind of bat it back around. Yeah. It is really tough because obviously we want to earn money, and just because there's more people there doesn't mean you're going to get it. That's just not what happens. But I don't know, I would feel quite uncomfortable. It's a little bit like going to an illegal rave, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want to go, but you do want to tell your mum about it.
What's a rave?
The FujiCast.
A rave? The other day I was telling my kids actually that we were listening to something. I think it was an old school song on Radio 1. And the kids said, "What's this?" And Sam said, "This is acid." And they said, "What's acid?" We're trying to explain to them the acid house movement. And they still looked at me like I was 105. I don't think anything Dad's done will ever be cool in their mind. Anyway, hello, welcome to the FujiCast. You and your questions from the electronic mailbag, and of course, now through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're very welcome to become a part of. If you'd like to send a mail old school acid style, then you can still do so through click at fujicast.co.uk. Welcome aboard those who don't shoot Fuji. You're very welcome here, and as you listen on, you'll find out that we talk about all kinds of stuff that doesn't necessarily have a branded badge on it. And of course, in doing so, you've just become part of our very friendly club. Also, we'll have Club Indulgence, where we get to read out the lovely comments that you've made, and keep sending those reviews in, by the way. We're not allowed to ask you to send in nice ones. Clearly you have to send in ones that you feel are appropriate, but we like to read them out and thank you during Club Indulgence. Kev's book of the week this week. Last week's Peter Dench one was great, loved it, with the Brits Abroad, wasn't it? It was a real Brits Abroad. What's this week's?
This week is Hoxton Mini Press Book. I've lived in East London for 86 and a half years.
Is this the one that you got when you did that special deal over the...
It's one of them, yeah, but this is...
Isn't this the one that started it?
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful book.
So, this chap, sorry, how many years was it?
86 and a half years.
86 and a half years. Oh, it's a fantastic book. So we've got
I'll tell you more about it when we get to that part.
Yes. Oh, and special guest this week is a previously featured book author, actually, Kev, from a few weeks ago when we talked about the isolated streets. It's street photographer Kant Rathod. Right, questions, as always. You launch first. Kev's turn. Party time.
Right, random question. From
random?
Brian Selby.
Right. What's random about this?
Well, I just picked pages up.
Oh, right. I thought you meant it was going to be a random style question.
Hi, guys. Well, we're almost back to work as wedding shooters. Really? Most of mine cancelled for the year, but I still have one or two in there that are just what I would call hanging on for dear life.
Yes, that's what it feels like.
I've got a couple in September, and they just won't move. Everything else, including November dates, have now moved, cancelled, postponed.
Yeah.
What are you saying to these clients when they ask you for advice? And as a request, would love to hear some listener experiences on how they have handled these kinds of situations too, and how they're feeling. Brian Selby, well, we have a lot of experience in this.
Well, I know we talk a lot about, I'm acutely aware that, and sometimes people say, you've talked about weddings too much this week. But we are wedding shooters in the social photography market. But a lot of the stuff you hear applies across lots of different genres, I know. But in particular weddings, what can you say? Now, we've talked from, well, my policy has been, when it comes to moving dates, that I haven't charged a surcharge. You're shaking your head like that. What?
No, I can't understand why people would do
Oh,
that.
I see. Well, no, remember, a lot of people said, of course you should, because you've effectively lost the booking that you could have taken on next year. Because you've already charged your deposit, you're honouring the deposit, so therefore you're essentially losing some money when you.
But this is a pandemic that nobody's ever experienced.
I'm totally with you in that, and I think that's the correct and ethical. Morally, I feel comfortable with myself as well.
Morals are good
for doing so, because I think what comes around goes around, and it's not just me wanting to. Get that good karma. I genuinely believe it's the appropriate thing to do.
Well, absolutely. I think imagine somebody 18 months ago, called you up, really love your work, Neil. You had to chat with them, they booked, and everything's great, blah, 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 blah. Then all of a sudden this beastly thing comes along, and they ring you up and they go, oh, remember us, Ian?
What?
Ian.
Who's Ian?
Ian's my real best friend.
I feel like I've just had a moment that I had many, many years ago with a girlfriend that we probably shouldn't go into.
So they ring you up and they're like, "Oh, do you remember us?"
I can't believe you just called me Ian, darling.
I honestly have no idea who Ian is either.
That's right. Well, my father-in-law's called Trev. I often call him Kev.
Oh, right, there you go.
And I think I've called you Trev in the past as well.
Trev, Kev, Ian, Neil. Very similar.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
But yeah, so you've got this lovely relationship, and then they call you up and they go, we've got this, this horrible pandemic that's hit the entire world for 6. We're going to move to next year, and you go, yes, well, of course, I shall be charging you £500 for the privilege.
Well, plenty did.
Yeah, I would personally just go somewhere else if I was that client. I have to say that. Bad business, perhaps, but I think morally, ethically, and sensibly, that would be what I would do.
It's the right thing to do.
And that's what I've done.
Yeah.
For some, we haven't been able to get a date. I haven't given their deposits back. None of them have asked for their deposits back. Everybody else, I've just said, boom. I've actually put something in my contract now that says, should a similar thing happen again.
Oh, this is going to be my next question then. So,
right.
How many times can this bounce forward?
Well, who knows? I mean, if it happens too many times, then the entire world's just going to collapse, isn't it? So. We'll figure this out as a human race. We'll figure it out, and it will all kind of sort itself out in some way or the other. Things always do, and we'll get back on our feet. But ultimately, I think you can be a little bit too blinkered by hard-nosed business and actually think, what, this is people's weddings. It's not. This isn't. You're not buying a car. This is love and their life together. It's not. It's not a commodity.
Have you got any for 2022?
Yes. But only one.
Because of this?
No, they booked 4 years ago.
No.
They booked their wedding 6 years in advance.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet at the time you were thinking, can you believe this? 6 years away. And now who's smiling?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lovely. 2 girls, will be a lovely couple, are a lovely couple now. And
they made the right decision, didn't they, to hold this for that long?
I remember speaking to them. They came to see me in the studio, and I was like, "That's a long way away."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Yeah, I know, but we."
Well, do you know this shows you it shows you how long ago it was that you were actually still having wedding meetings in your studio,
I know,
which you don't do.
I know,
these days.
And I was like, actually, you know what? It was one of those meetings where you just clicked and connected, and you could just tell that no matter how long it takes, they're going to get there. Yeah. And so 2022, but that's it. Only that one. A couple of inquiries buzzed through, but not too much.
Yeah. So I think honour these bookings. And did that answer the entire question there?
Well, the question was, what you're saying to the clients when they ask for your advice. So. My advice effectively has been, what I've put into the contract, which is, look, this is not a good situation for anybody. We all need to try and help each other. And if you move it, as long as I'm free, then I will just, I've even said to people who have moved.
I'll be there.
We haven't even, they've said, do you need to send us a new contract with a new date and everything? I was like, nope, I'll use a pen. I'll just scratch out what you wrote. I've just made it as simple as possible.
Yes. Yes.
And
I've sent new contracts just changing the dates.
I haven't,
but
there's no right or wrong there either. But I've just I've just made it as simple as possible, and we've just changed it. One thing I have noticed though is that a lot of the weddings are on Mondays next year.
Yes. Do you know that was an interesting thing, because in terms of bookings for next year, I've still got plenty of weekends available because people have gone for the weekday option. Well,
I think
could be quite an impressive year next year.
Well, it could be, but I think a couple of things are happening, isn't it? The venues, some of the venues have been a little bit unscrupulous, yeah. And so they've not been offering those weekend, or they've been really charging high rates for those weekend days because they know. Yes. And that's actually, maybe that's not unscrupulous, that's just good business. And so a lot of the people have been, or they're just booked on those Saturdays, these venues already, perhaps they are. And so they've, it's like, well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's your only choice. So a lot of the weddings I've got are on Mondays.
The venues are finding it very hard. I have another couple that spoke to me the other day. I clearly won't say the venue, but who said that they'd claimed on their insurance and received the venue. Received some money, but they're refusing to give the money back to the client, so they've kept double. Difficult one.
It is difficult because at the end of the day, the venues,
they don't want them to go pop.
They don't want to go bust. Nobody wants to go bust, but it's tricky.
Craig Bolton, on this, I know we've answered this question before, but in that we understand that not everybody listens to every single show.
What?
I know it's difficult to understand or believe even, but that's true. Hi Kevin, hi Neil. With everyone going back to work now, it seems face masks are going to be a thing of the immediate and ongoing future. How are you dealing with them in so prominently in pictures? I know it's a sign of the times. The pictures are going to look mighty strange with whole swathes of wedding guests wearing masks. Of course, again, it's not just wedding guests. This can be other genres too. But keep up the good work from Craig with a K.
Well, I haven't photographed any weddings, so nobody's had any masks.
No. By the time we go back, the masks will be long gone.
Do you know the way I'm dealing with masks?
What's that?
I'm walking all the way down to the co-op and realising I haven't got one. I'm walking all the way home, all the way back up the hill going...
Have you become a mask... what's the phrase?
Hater.
Well, I was going to say mask police. Have you become the mask police?
No.
So when you're in a shop... So I saw this the other day, and I know that you listening right now would have seen this as well, I'm sure. So I was in a petrol station, paying for fuel, and somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I haven't got my mask. Oh, I just need..." The guy behind the till said, "That's all right, just go and get what you need."
I have to say...
And there was me left soothing, "I remember my mask."
Yeah, I haven't...
Sell this person one.
I haven't seen that, but...
I've seen this a couple of times, actually, where people are just brazenly walk into a shop and it's like, "To hell with you, I'm not wearing a mask. I forgot it. Dog ate my homework."
It's a little bit like the arrows, isn't it, in the supermarkets that everybody ignores.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
That makes me laugh. But yeah, the masks. The masks, actually, as we come out of this, or hopefully come out of it, that's the thing I'm struggling with the most.
What does it make you feel like when you're wearing one?
It makes me feel like I'm watching a movie from somebody else's eyes.
Yeah.
I just hate it. I feel like this is not real life. It's just unpleasant, uncomfortable, but necessary, and just horrible. And you go to the co-op or Tesco's, other supermarkets.
Other supermarkets are available, yeah.
Or loyalty card and co-op days. And you just walk around and it's nobody speaks to each other because they're terrified, and everybody avoids it. I just think, good God, this is like something out of a film.
Yeah,
I hate it.
It's very really apocalyptic, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic. But how are you going to deal with, as Craig says here, with featuring masks in pictures when you do start photographing these events, which you will, Kev?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Will they still be necessary then? I have a feeling that by the time the weddings kick off again next year, well, I hope anyway that this will be under control a lot more, and we'll be in a better situation. I don't know. I mean, you don't have to wear a mask outside, so if you're doing formal photos in the garden, they're not going to need to have their mask on. But inside in a public place is a wedding venue where you've only got two families classed as a public place. Do you have to wear a mask when you're sat down having your wedding breakfast? I don't know the answer.
Well, you're not
that.
In the bubble, so you should be.
No, but I mean the guests. He's on about photographing the people, right? So will they have to, by law, wear a mask in the wedding venue? I don't know. I just don't. It's all so up in the air, isn't it?
Well, the staff, because I take a lot of pictures of staff, and they clearly should be wearing a mask all the time.
But also, I mean, it is what it is, and actually, in 30 years'
I've
time,
got to
when
get
they
that
look
meme,
at
by
those,
the way. The kids, by the way, found the meme the other day for "It is what it is." As I said, Kev says that a lot.
you mean?
There's a meme.
A meme.
A meme. A meme. Yeah.
But the pictures, if in 30 years' time, and you take a picture of somebody with their masks on, and they at a wedding,
they'll know that date straight away.
Yeah, and they say, "Don't take." Oh no, I need to take my mask off, and then it's not real. This is what reality is now, sadly. And so, I wouldn't have a problem taking pictures.
I wonder when the first Hollywood movie will come out of the pandemic of 2020.
There's already one out.
There
was one about a lift. I don't think it was a Hollywood movie, but it was a full feature film. Came from, I think it was Japan.
Right.
And it was out while we were in full down lockdown.
Right.
It was about a elevator, and
don't tell me somebody coughs in it or something.
The elevator breaks down, and they cough, and they get a temperature,
right.
And it was a real kind of. But that was
or within minutes.
That was made. Seems like it was made within minutes, but it was a full hour and a half film.
Wow!
All about the based on the
in one elevator
coronavirus. Yeah. COVID-19 coronavirus, whatever it's called.
Right. Your question, then we'll do our.
Okay, so I have a question
reviews
from Steve Ford in New Zealand.
All right. Okay.
However, I don't think he is now. I think he's come back.
Has he?
I think so.
Has he?
I think so.
Okay.
Kia ora, chappies, from the bottom of the world.
That wonderful orange drink.
One of my many marriages took place down here in New Zealand in the middle of the summer.
Sorry, what did he say?
One of my many marriages took places down here in New Zealand in the middle of the summer.
Oh, is he talking as a wedding photographer now, or somebody who's been married many times?
Yeah, you see, it doesn't really. I read this a few times, and he doesn't really underline this. There was an outdoor ceremony. Oh, actually, right. I need to read the whole thing again.
Hang on. This is a bit like a teacher. Read the question, Mullins.
One of my many marriages took place down here in New Zealand in the middle of the summer. An outdoor affair. That was the plan.
Right.
Trouble was, the rain was coming in sideways all day and it was blowing a gale. Typical Wellington weather. Surprise, surprise, the next day was a stunner. We knew the photographer. So it is one of his many weddings. One of his many marriages. We knew the photographer, so she agreed to shoot all over again. The flowers were rescued from the friend that had caught them. The bridesmaids and best men were convinced to get dressed up again, and off we trotted under a beautiful blue sky for the photos. Have you ever had a complete wedding weather disaster, and if so, how did it go?
Oh, God, yes, I have.
Well, then you best answer the question.
I remember one at Notley Abbey, which is a beautiful venue in Thame. And everybody was outside getting for this particular one. So it was an outdoor wedding in the back garden, beautifully set. Really, they really do it well at this particular venue. I just saw in the distance, I saw this weird sort of round cloud. It's a roll cloud, isn't it? And this thing just seemed to be gaining in it was speed towards us and height and everything. And within 5 minutes, this thing was it was above us. It was like something out of talking about apocalyptic things. It was a bit like that out of a movie. And it came over the top of the venue and it just went boof. It was like somebody had just tipped a bucket of water and it fell on everybody. People were you wouldn't think you could be so instantly drenched, but you were. And I got, I have to say, a picture that I used for many years in my portfolio. A lovely picture of a bride who was with laughter. Could not believe this had happened. I mean, it could have gone one way or t'other, but it went the right way, I think. And, What about you?
I've never had anything. I remember, actually, interestingly, the first day I got the X100, Fujifilm X100.
The original?
The original one, 2011 or 10 or whatever it was.
That wouldn't have been waterproof.
And I had a wedding that day. No, it wasn't. I had a wedding that day at Cripps Bar in Gloucestershire.
That's a nice venue.
And I went up. Yeah, it is a nice venue. I went up, and as usual, even though it's only a 20-minute drive from my house, I was about 4 hours early. So I sat I didn't go in the car park. I went up to Barnsley, which is the little town, little village. And there's like a field there, and so I pulled my car in, and I was playing with my camera, and I was outside the car looking at the camera, and I could see in the distance what just looked like a curtain, if you like, coming closer and closer and closer. And I was like, wow, is that rain? And I could see it, and then I could smell it. They say you can smell a storm.
Yeah.
And I could smell it. It was getting stronger and stronger. All of the birds like roosted suddenly. And it got a bit like we had the other night. We got really windy all of a sudden before the rain came.
Yes.
Very windy. And no word of a lie, this car park is probably 300 metres long. And I saw this wall of water start at one end of the car park. And it was like a vertical wall of water. And I got in my car literally just as it went over the car. And it was like going through a car wash. It just started at the front, went past my car, 10 seconds, gone. Just gone. But it did go to the venue, and I wasn't there, of course.
Oh dear!
But it did. It caused all kinds of damage to the flower arrangements and all that kind of stuff. It's just like this wall of water just moving across the countryside.
Wow, there we go.
I love inclement weather. Love it.
Yeah. Not knowing what it's going to do. Well, you're in the right country, and obviously in Wellington.
Wellington, yeah. No, they have it proper down there,
because it's very similar, actually, to the climate we have here, isn't it, Wellington?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I believe. Right, then, let's do our club indulgence for this week. Are you reading at double speed?
No, I fell off that horse last week.
You've given up with that one. Go on, you go first. Go on.
This is from Steve, 068548. I hope that's not his telephone number. I was lucky to...
It'll be a very short number if it was, isn't it?
I was lucky to discover this in week 2 of the series.
Oh, right. Blimey.
It's a regular weekly treat, informed and entertaining with fascinating guests. Well done.
Do you remember your first telephone number you ever had?
I do.
Go on.
854-549.
That's quite long.
854-549.
Where was it? What town?
Newport.
Oh, I knew that, yeah. We had 2671. No, 671 we had. I remember that's our earlier one. Very small town.
Did you have to go through a operator?
No, I don't remember it being like that. This one is from Eribo. The best photography podcast around. Have you listened to a photography podcast and got sent to sleep with a monotonous voice, lack of punch, no humour, no banter, total obsession on gear and many self-important speakers? You won't find that here. Instead, you get two incredibly talented. Do you know, flattery gets you everywhere, Eribo. Talented, but also incredible, humble and humane. I know you won't like this now, Kev. Do you want to cover your ears? Togs. Ugh. Who love to share their passion without any ulterior motive other than create a sound community. I've listened to every single episode, and my learning journey as a fairly new photographer has been fantastic. There we go. Thank you, Eribo, for your very kind words. Go on. Have you got another one there?
Yeah, I got the same one.
I know you've got
it's the same ones from last week.
No, surely
yes,
not. Don't you cross them out?
Yeah, but I have, and I've got them twice.
Oh, have I done that to you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is from Asen Velikchov.
Right.
In Finland. Great show, perfect mix of useful information about gear and photography in general. Interesting interviews with great photographers, lots of good humour and inspiration. Kevin and Neil are the best. Looking forward to hearing the new episode each Monday morning.
Well,
thank you, Asen.
Remember, if you've sent in one of these, you are incredible and...
You're our favourite listener, and we mean it.
Right, time for this week's interview. Kev mentioned Kant Rathard's self-published black and white current retrospective, if you will, of our time a couple of weeks back. The Isolated Streets, which is available through his website, itsnotwhatyousee.photography. To look at the lockdown period through words and street photography which reflect the sentiments of isolation and social distancing. Kant designed, he wrote, he photographed the project, and then he self-published the book. So this is a chance to hear more about the project from the creator. Kant, I know you're an exceptionally talented graphic designer as well. Is your creative mind so very different between being a designer and being a photographer, or is that this sort of crossover in styles?
I think there's a bit of a crossover because I've been in the graphic design business probably about 25 years plus.
Right.
And in that time, I did do a lot of art direction with photographers, in the sort of late 80s, early 90s.
So were you always I'll be careful how I say this, a frustrated photographer at large, or?
I think there was a bit of photography in me right from the start, I think, because I think a lot of graphic designers are very visual.
Yes.
So photography for me, it was all about sort of composition when I was commissioning photographers. And, in those days, I'm sure you're aware, you do Polaroids of certain shots. and then you'd say, okay, that's brilliant, let's go for it, and then we'd shoot sort of roll a film.
So in many respects, you've had a good, solid photographic education working with photographers, haven't you?
Yes. I used to love working with photographers. I mean, we spoke from the same page, and I used to just get excited getting out of the office and going to the photographer studio and just hanging out there all day.
Yeah, I bet.
And getting the shots we wanted.
Well, let's talk about your photography. A self-taught street and urban photographer, although as now we've identified, with the advantage of having worked with so many great photographers in your design work. But I'm intrigued by your influences. I suppose in that you quote Elliot Erwitt in the closing pages of your book.
Yes.
I find that photography has very little to do with the things you see and everything to do with the way you see them. I'm imagining he's certainly one of your leading inspirations.
Yes, but I think it has to be Henry Cartier-Bresson. I think for me, for street photography, it's just him, because I think his sort of work came to my light quite early on, and I just liked his sort of style of looking at things slightly differently, and how geometry played a part in a lot of compositions as well. And the other one is a completely different one, is Ansel Adams, because I don't really do landscape, but I just like the beauty in his work of the amazing tones you get across his vast landscapes.
Well, I think the tones are very much played out in the work that you photograph, and we'll come to that. Are there any more recent photographers, perhaps within the Insta sphere, that have caught your eye?
There's a few. There's like Mark Fernley. He's follow his work. There's Riley. He's another English photographer, street photographer.
So generally those that work on the Brit streets, or
yeah, generally.
So how long have you been actually photographing the street scene and urban scene?
Probably, I'd say around 2008. 2009.
And what were those first experiences like?
A little bit, predominantly it was just shooting architectural work, and then I started getting a bit more confident shooting, having a person in the shot. But at this time I was using SLR cameras, funnily enough. I think 2011 Fuji film came out with the X100, and I think that just started it for me, properly for street photography, allowing a bit more freedom, I think, compared to the ergonomics of an SLR camera.
But even prior to lockdown, people do appear in your photographs, and you mentioned that you got slightly more confident bringing them in as well. But they don't necessarily dominate in your pictures, do they?
No, I'm a big lover of sort of structure and the built environment, and my ideal sort of style of street is to try and combine vast structures or interesting structures with a person in the shot. I try and keep it quite solitary, so there's always maybe just one or two persons in the shot. I'm quite a sort of introverted person, so I try and keep the shots very sort of introverted in terms of just having single people in each shot.
A lot of people I've spoken to, a lot of street photographers talk about this this introverted character that they have, and that how photography plays a very important role really in taking them out and giving them confidence behind a camera. It sounds like it's a similar story for you.
Yeah, I think sometimes you go out and you're thinking, I'm not in the mood, but then suddenly you're just walking the streets and something magical happens. I don't know. I think it's one of those questions you always ask. I always ask myself, how the hell did I achieve that shot? And when you weren't even that motivated to go out that day.
Well, what's a good day then? I spoke with Sean Tucker about this, the YouTuber who has his own particular style for street photography, and some of the shadow play actually. I look at both of your work, and there's some similarity there. And but he says that sometimes he can wander for hours, maybe even days, and not come back with anything.
Yeah, I'm the same really. I do rely on, when I'm doing a shadow play, quite like the strong contrasty light and shadows. I think I've done a lot of those shots during the first part of the day, and also I think I can only tolerate about 2 hours of solid photography, and then I think it's down the pub, I think, after that.
Well, at least you're honest.
Yes, I am honest.
You talk about this strong shadow play, and goodness, there's so much of that in your work. Very, very definitive directions in to where my eye should be led in your work as well. Strong lines, very strong lines. How do you describe your work?
I try to do something which I have a view towards what it would look like printed. I think personally photography should be appreciated in print. Instagram's fine, the digital sphere is fine, but to get a real connection with imagery, I think you have to see a physical print.
That's very interesting. So when you shoot, you're thinking print?
Yes, and I'm thinking black and white as well. So I don't actually shoot in black and white. I shoot raw, but I don't have the settings in black and white. I just shoot, in RGB mode, and then I think that will work really good in black and white, and then sort of take it forward from there.
So The Isolated Streets, your new book, self-published book.
Yes.
I want to get to the nitty-gritty of self-publishing, because there are two words we use quite a lot on this show. When did the book actually get released?
Well, I came up with the idea just as lockdown started.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, I haven't got much work on. I've got to make use of my time. So I just came up with this idea of isolation. And I think a lot in the media, the words, social distancing was coming up, and, isolation and lockdown. I mean, I'd already had my images in my archive, so I thought I could come up with an idea to, write a little bit about this period. It's quite a historic period now. Just have some views about how we used to interact with people, and will we carry on interacting the way we normally do after this period's over. And I think that's what sort of motivated me to sort of produce the book.
That's interesting, because knowing now that many of the pictures when you're in your archive anyway, I mean, I could tell that with some of the ones where there's more people and obviously there's no social distancing going on at all, but some of them, they do look like the scenes that we've had the last 4 or 5 months of pretty much isolation, with the odd person walking around here and there. I mean, it fitted very well, didn't it?
I'm very pleased with it. It was only a sort of pet project, but now it's getting a lot of good interest from people who've sort of bought it. That's very, very positive about it. I think what I want to do now is to maybe start working on a series of other projects, which I've got a few stacking up now, because I've got a design background. I'll design the book physically, and then obviously get it printed, and then planning to have a website which will eventually sell all the different books.
So take me through the self-publishing and the design part of it, because that fascinates me. So you've got your background anyway in design, so that's a big tick in the box of skill set, isn't it? Really?
Yes, very much. So.
You designed it in what? Is it?
Oh, in design.
In InDesign, okay,
yeah,
all right.
It's a part of the Adobe suite.
And then pushing that through to becoming a self-published project. Are we talking large runs of books or on demand?
At the moment, the batch which you've got and Kevin got, I did a small run, something which was affordable, and it was more of a exercise in testing the water. I think what I might do is do another batch of that book quite soon, potentially sell on Amazon as a short-term plan.
So how does that work then with selling it through Amazon?
You have to get an ISBN number for the book. There's a free service, which basically means you can sell up to 35 copies a month, and there's no extra charge, but they do take a small percentage off each sale.
It's a good place to have it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the readership is immense, so it could be a good way to go.
And the text that you have in there, there's not too much of it. It's sporadic. It's within the book here and there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming now, knowing that a lot of the pictures are from the archive, you were writing according to the pictures you'd laid out within the design?
That's right. Yes, so I wanted to try and have about 7 or 8 passages in the book, and then each passage would be illustrated by images which I thought were fitting for that small passage. And that's how I structured it. I mean, originally, the first sort of draft of the book, there was images on both sides and I had no text. And then I started thinking, this isn't working. So I started just putting one image on each page just to give it a bit more breathing space. And then I started scribbling with words and thinking how I could write something about certain situations which are reflective of the topic.
And how have you yourself felt during this period? I mean, the book's about isolated streets.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about your own feelings about isolation. Doesn't sound like it's been the easiest time. Well, I know it's not been the easiest time for anybody, but I know particularly for photographers who like being out on the street.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then it's been challenging. How have you coped with this period?
I'm surprisingly have coped reasonably well. Obviously, I couldn't see family. My parents live in a different part of the UK. I didn't see them for about 3 or 4 months. But because I spend a lot of time by myself, it's almost like it wasn't a major thing for me, really.
So you talked about follow-ups. Maybe the first follow-up is not so isolated streets, because where you are based in London, there are parts of it that doesn't seem like there's a lot of isolation happening at all, and everything's sort of come out again as it was before, just in parts from my own observations.
Yeah.
What about your own follow-ups? What's planned next? I mean, this has been a tremendously successful project, hasn't it? So you must be thinking, well, that worked well, Kant. Thank you very much. Yes. Next one is what?
I would love to do an exhibition based on this project in the future, because I think the images be better appreciated, printed even larger, I think, because obviously in my graphic design profession, a lot of the work I produce is printed. The sort of detail and the perfection is quite important for me. And
how on earth are you going to choose, though? I mean, there are hundreds of pictures in there.
I think I'd choose. I think I could quite confidently choose about sort of 15. I'd be happy with, I think, to produce a bigger size.
Oh, Kant, my goodness. I'd be going for more immediately. I'm flicking through here thinking, that's an impossible task. Good luck with that one. But do you have any particular images for you that say everything about isolation within the book? There's one for me. I know it seems to be a favourite haunt of yours. It's a very popular haunt for photographers, the National Theatre.
Yeah.
But there's one very lonesome, isolated picture of somebody surrounded by this just incredible structure that is the National Theatre. I wonder if there's any for you that particularly stand out. Do you think that, for me, means isolation?
I think that's one of my favourites. The woman on the National Theatre going up the steps.
Yeah. Thanks to Kant Rathod, and you can see some of the images and learn more about the book on itsnotwhatyouSee.photography. Right, back to your questions. And, by the way, a quick mention that your questions are the lifeblood of the show, so send them in. I constantly forget to do the email address. So there's 2 ways to send them in, either by email to click@fujicast.co.uk. That's click@fujicast.co.uk, or through the private Fujicast Facebook group, which you're very welcome to join. And that has a post pinned to the top, so you can leave questions on anything tech for Fujifilm stuff, but then anything at all, really, in terms of your own thoughts and your own business or just being a photographer. You can get quite personal too, if it helps you understand how we as photographers are dealing with a time that, well, for some genres, frankly, still feels like lockdown. So yes, send those in. Click at fujicast.co.uk or indeed through the Facebook group. So yes, back to your questions. Here's one from Adam B. in Staffordshire. Dear both, thank you very much for keeping me sane since March. Well, no, you're still sane, are you? Your humour coupled with serious and thought-provoking interviews have in all seriousness been a real light at these times. Thanks to your guidance in the past, I'm now a very happy owner of the F2 Fuji Primes and the 23 and 50. I'm amazed at how light, well-built and sharp they are. My good question... Choice. Yeah, good choice. Do you have... What is your current sported bag of glass?
I would mostly shoot... If I was shooting a wedding today and I could only take 2 lenses, it'd be 23 1.4, 56 1.2.
Yeah, same for him.
But I do have those F2 lenses. They are
the 50mm in particular, F2. That's one I did for a while dump the 56 because I thought I think this is a focal length I could learn to live with here. Not that much less, a 50 to a 56, but surprisingly it is actually.
Yeah, it is on an APS-C system. You notice it more than you would 6mm difference on a full frame. But for me, it's that extra stop of light. Yeah. I just need that mostly.
Yeah. Well, that's so beautiful. That F250 is
amazing.
just stunning. Neil, I know. Oh yes, I'm going to ask. I'm going around in circles. He says between a PC laptop and an Apple laptop.
Dun, dun, dun.
Neil, I know you're a Mac, and Kevin, you use high-powered PC. I've read a lot of contradictory advice. Thanks, internet in brackets, and would like to know your thoughts where you think you'll go in the future. What do you consider to be the pros and cons with each for imaging and post-processing? And what do you think are the most important considerations for choosing? Can I dive in here straight away with my constant battle I have in my mind about whether I should be using Mac or PC? Personally, I'm still a huge fan of iMac, and sometimes I wonder if it's just because I like really simple features like the AirDrop, which
you can't do easily on Windows.
No,
at all.
and it's I with the Photography Daily Show, I do a lot of audio now using using my iPhone, and I like to just quickly be able to transfer stuff across. Now that could be lazy, of course, because there has to be other ways of quickly doing that. Is there no? I mean,
There's no,
because I've not had to face this as a PC user. I'm a Mac user. I've never had to find a workaround. Is there no workaround?
I mean, I've never used AirDrop, so I don't really know what it is, but I've seen people talk about it. I know how you use
you
it.
just click up, and there you see all your available Mac machines there, and it's just so easy to use.
You can do similar things, but
Throwing stuff around quickly. I want that to go to that machine. I want that to go to my editing machine. Pop, 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 done.
it's excuse me, it's not.
Am I talking about Mac? Is that what you're yawning?
You can cut that bit. That was a real norm, not your.
I'm going to keep that in just to show how mean you are.
You can do similar things on Windows, but it's not. I don't
it's not
think
the
it's
same, is it?
as clear cut. It's not so native.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that I love. I suppose a lot of my reticence to leave the Mac empire is to do with just feels so easy to use, and when I use my son's PC, it's just a bit clunky. But you don't find this.
No, but then I suppose when I did on the very rare occasions I have used Macs, I find them ridiculously clunky. So it's because of what we're both used to.
That's
it's
true,
not neither one I don't think is.
What is this thing about them slowing down as well after time? You've got. I'm sorry. You've in your bag of tricks that you brought in today, because I know you brought it to do some stuff with. You've got a new. Is that Adele in there? Not Adele as in the pop singer. Hello, Adele. Come out now.
I'm 28.
Hello. But you brought Adele with you. That's nice. You hang out in great circles. You've got Adele.
I have Adele
laptop in there, but I don't think I've ever seen you use Adele.
No, so
you've always sort of had these really high fandango units made.
Well, the first thing that we'll talk about that in a sec, but you mentioned this thing about PCs slowing down, and ultimately that comes down to the hardware. It's not the software so much, and not these days. In the old days, like Windows 95 and everything. And it wasn't Windows that would slow things down. It was the amount of bloatware and junk software that people would click on everything and download everything. Bloatware. Stuff you get with computers that just come out of the box, like things like Norton antivirus and stuff.
Right.
And these days, Windows 10 is clean, it's fresh, it looks after itself. You don't need antivirus stuff. You don't need any of that stuff. It's all built in. And it's just good. But you do need to have a reasonable PC. You can't expect it to not slow down on a machine that's like 8 years old, kind of thing, because it will. Because as the disks start to, these days most Apple computers also use SSDs, solid state drives, and the NVMe drives as well. So you're not going to get what's known as disk defragmentation so much.
But I haven't noticed that with my. I've used various laptops, a 13, a 15, MacBook Pros. These are.
Yeah.
I've never noticed them get ridiculously slow. I think they are slower than the day I bought them. But
I honestly can say I've never had a PC that's got slow because I know how to use it. And that's ultimately it. And I don't download. Left, right, and centre and stuff like that.
When my Sage system was only available, which it may still be, I don't know. I don't use it anymore. But on Windows, I bought one for the bookkeeper to use. But I think I spent the minimum amount I could possibly spend on it. What, 200 and something pounds from Currys, and then within 6 months it was just a piece of nonsense.
Yeah, I mean that's just not the way it is these days. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I mean, ultimately, you will get far more bang for your buck with a PC, regardless.
Without doubt,
regardless.
yeah.
But ultimately, if you prefer Mac system, then that makes sense. It's like the JPEG plus RAW thing, isn't it? I mean, I have this Dell system now. I've been using as my laptop. I've been using a Surface Book 2016 Surface Book for a while.
Yeah, you swear by that.
Yeah,
Love
it was great. It was great. There was nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Most of my editing, of course, is done in the studio, which confuses things because this thing is called a studio book. So when I say my studio, that's my big computer in the office. But the studio book is a laptop. A nice laptop, 2016. You know, what I've noticed during the lockdown, of course, is that I'm not using it at all because I've brought my computer home. Or I did bring my computer home. It's now back in the studio. With no...
But you're still at home, mate.
where no weddings on the horizon. Yeah, so what I actually have done is I've effectively swapped that in for that Dell. A much more powerful
What are you going to do with the other
laptop.
one then?
I don't know. Anybody want to buy it? Email me if you want to buy my Surface Book.
But it's a perfectly good Surface Book.
It is.
You
yeah.
swear by that thing usually.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's fine. It's perfect.
If
But
I had spare cash, I'd buy it of you.
but I want...
Can you lend it to me and I'll lose it in that
Yeah,
Bermuda
yeah,
Triangle of
yeah,
where your
yeah.
35mm has gone?
No, so this Dell system...
If you want to buy one of those, then contact Kev. He's got it. Have it before I borrow it.
Yeah, no, seriously, it is for sale. My Microsoft Surface Book is for sale.
I never thought I'd see the day where that would go.
Yeah, it's going.
Wow.
Well, it has to go because I need to feed the kids. But yeah, no, but the Windows PC thing, Mac, honestly, it really has to come down. I couldn't use a Mac. I remember when Microsoft gave me one when I worked at Microsoft. They said I was the only person at Microsoft support. They said I wasn't the only one there, but I was the only one they gave a Mac to because I supported things like Flight Sim, which had Mac versions.
All right.
It's like,
I bet your colleagues looked at you strangely.
There's a I had this suddenly woke up one morning, came into work one day, there was this white thing glinting in the corner, and I was like, "What's that?" Doing any, this great big smiley face on it, and then I got a call, and it was Microsoft Works for Microsoft Works was a software package, and that was available on Mac as well. I was about 20 minutes into this call, and I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you sure you're not using WordPerfect or something?" She was like, no, it says Microsoft. I even made her get the box out. And I said, read me what it says on the front of the box. She said, Microsoft Works for Apple Macintosh. I was like, oh, no wonder I have no idea what you're on about then. Hang on, I said, I've got one of them. I turned around, I just looked at it, and I was like, I don't even know. And I said to her, do you know how to turn these things on? She said, yeah, the on button is on the top right-hand side of the keyboard.
So you didn't even know how to turn it on?
I pressed this thing, and it's like this spring thing, and it went, bzzz. That's how I used to turn them on. And that was.
Did you have to make the noise when you did it?
I was quite excited by that, though. This seems like a very sensible place to have an on button rather than behind the computer down by the floor. Yeah. But that was my love affair was entirely over at that point.
That was it. Was it?
I had no idea what to do.
You never get the idea of floating windows, do you?
Floating window. Oh no, I don't understand why you don't maximize things. Yeah. So now we're looking at your audition.
Yeah.
Why don't you just make that full screen?
No, because you like to see things behind it.
Yeah, but you can do that anyway. You can just go down in the corner and peek at the desktop, surely. No.
Well, maybe, but I like maybe, but this one goes up to 11.
It gives me heebie-jeebies.
So yeah. So what did he say here? I've read a lot of contradictory things. Would like to know your thoughts on where you'll go in the future. Well, I've got to be honest, Adam. I think where I'm going to go in the future is probably to PC, because these machines now, the Mac versions, are getting so horrendously expensive, and I think I'll have to head there at some stage. I really will.
I think Apple as a company were going down a bad route when they were staying proprietary. That's what did for IBM in the end. Enforcing people to only buy Apple peripherals, Apple memory, Apple this, Apple that. And I think they've relaxed a little bit on that now. I think you can get third-party memory modules and things. But if they'd stayed that way, I think that would have done for them.
Do you think so?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to IBM, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they do look ace. And your screen here in front of me. If you're into crayons and drawing, looks lovely.
You're so rude about Mac. You really are. He said on a separate. So I know where you stand with this. Just get yourself a PC, save a shed load of cash, and
But saying that, even if Macs were the same price as PCs, I would. Let's just say Macs was suddenly 20% cheaper. I would find it really difficult to switch because I just don't understand the operating system, and I think that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I do understand it. I love it, but it comes down to, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to really, isn't it?
Yeah.
On a separate note, he says, I'd like to thank Kev for his advert for Ginster's sausage rolls a couple of weeks ago when he was demonstrating speaking distances from the microphone. Oh, yeah. His voice must have resonated somewhere with me when I found myself throwing 3 of the delectable delights into my shopping basket this week. Kev, maybe this could be a new income stream. The new voice of Ginsters.
I could do it really fast.
Go on then.
Ginsters.
But I have to ask, he says, how is the plant-based diet going? Well, obviously very well. You're still on it, aren't you?
Good, yeah. October, I've definitely fallen off the wagon a little bit when it came to cheese during lockdown. But other than that, I've not had any things that had a heartbeat in it. I've not eaten since October. Yep.
That's very good. No, I'm incredibly impressed. Right, your question.
My question is from Jonathan Crilly, and he says, hi Kevin, hi Neil, just following up on my Facebook post where there was a story on the BBC website suggesting there will be weddings every day in 2021.
Blimey.
Is there a risk of a race to the bottom where professionals like yourself find yourself competing with people whose primary source of income is not photography? Very good point. And who are offering a cheap package, particularly if weddings are small. How do you both then get the message across to potential clients that they are better investing in their wedding photography than going down the route of a cheap package?
It's all very much down to, Jonathan, what people feel they can afford at the moment, I find.
Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, at the end of the day, let's face it, if for the whole of 2021, and let's hope this isn't the case, but if it is that you can only have 30 people at a wedding, the days of £1,500, £2,000, £2,500, £3,000 weddings in terms of photography are over. Simple as that.
Do you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's going to be so many people offering, 30 short coverage, short deals, 300 quid, etc.
Well, I have gone, I've launched over the last week my short deal wedding, my 2-hour wedding, because I think there are plenty of people that won't want to have an 8 to 10 hour wedding.
Well, exactly.
In the next 10 months or 12 months.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So I will have to do it.
Yeah, precisely. I'm just saying
I'll have a good hourly rate, but I can't see myself being able to sell a stack load of 10-hour weddings like I once upon a time could.
No, exactly, and I think that might be a problem. But, who knows? Hopefully it will go away and we'll all be back.
Do you think we'll get back to the days where wedding photographers used to do 2 weddings in a day?
Could be.
If you're just doing 2-hour packages, you will start in one town at 11 o'clock in the morning, go and do another one at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, God. Can you imagine?
I mean, that was properly... 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the early 90s, and then no longer.
Do a fake cutting of the cake before heading off to the next place. Oh, no.
Oh, Kev's your delight. I'm sure he'd love it.
I would. That's it. I'm going to be a dustbin man.
Right, one more question, then it's book. Should we do a book first?
Book.
Should we do book? Let's do book.
I've lived in East London for 86 and a half years.
But you don't look like it, Kev.
I feel like it. I'm now 1,100 years old.
So this is the book that started Hoxton Mini Press, isn't it?
Correct.
That's why I recognised it. The moment I saw that cover, I thought, I remember that story.
So this is back in 2013, this was published, and the photographs are by Martin Usborne.
Yeah.
Many of you will have bought books, seen Hoxton Mini Press, and Martin is the founder of that, him and his wife. And the
do you know any of the backstory of
only from what I've read in this book,
right? And
which is really interesting, the introduction to this book. So I'll read you the first paragraph. Okay. Summer 2007, midday. I looked out of my window of my East London photographic studio, and there he was, shuffling slowly into Hoxton Square, plastic bag in hand, an oversized blazer slipping off his shoulders, and chatting to various neon-clad youth, laughing in the sun. He was so at odds with the crowd that I assumed he was lost or homeless or possibly a little mad. Surely that must be alcohol in the bag. I rushed downstairs, camera in hand, in the hope I might take his portrait and enter the image into a competition.
Oh my word, that's how this whole thing started.
Yeah, so
It's incredible.
Martin Usborne, then the guy he's talking about is a gentleman who's passed now, who's died now, sadly, Joseph Markovich. I'm sure that's right. And East London native, and so Martin basically just started photographing him. And that's where this book, that then became a documentary of that gentleman's life. That became a book, or it became a series of images, which then became Hoxton Mini Press's first publication.
Wow.
And so Hoxton Mini Press is beautiful. They often remind me, some of them are larger, some of them are smaller, but this
I was going to say
format,
they're all that size, because this is, what would this be,
this is A5.
A5?
Yeah,
right,
it reminds me of the Ladybird
Ladybird
books,
books, yeah.
hardback.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, really small. You know, you fit it in your handbag, man bag, whatever you want to call it. And there's so many good books on Hoxton Mini Press, like so many. But this, I really like this one because this is book one of the series, and they've gone on to do some amazing stuff.
How many books are there, do you know?
Oh, I don't know, but lots. I mean,
Dozens and dozens.
I must have 15 of them.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
okay. And you haven't got by any means the whole collection?
No, absolutely not. And so I backed Hoxton Mini Press during the lockdown. Obviously, they sell a lot of their books in East London in the bookstores, and the bookstores were shut. So they did a Kickstarter campaign, and one of the campaigns was to, give us some money and we'll give you 10 books. And so this was one of the books I chose. And there's a lovely print on the back. Joseph Markovich, age 16, 1943. Born 1st of the 1st, 1927. Died 26th of the 12th, 2013. But it's lovely, the picture. So there's a lot of quotes from
I was going to say
Joseph.
there's quite a lot of text in here.
Yeah, so it's a book without page numbers, but I've just flipped halfway through, and it's just a lovely little portrait. And it says, on aliens. They say there is more than one sun, so space must go on forever. There are probably creatures out there. They are probably on their way now. But it could be months and months before they arrive. They could be monsters with 3 heads. There could be human computers in space that could be watching you right now.
Or they could be small pathogen called corona.
On syphilis.
Oh, right, okay.
There was a film.
He had something to say about this.
There was a film about a man who found a cure for syphilis.
All right.
Dr. Elrich, he found a magic bullet to cure it. They called the film Dr. Elrich's Magic Bullet.
Right.
It's a pretty good film. I'll read out one more, right?
Apologies if the kids are listening in the car. At least you're not on the school run for another week.
I'm going to try and
That
find
would have been
one
a difficult one to...
that's a little less.
Mummy, can you tell...
On globalization.
Yes.
In modern times, we all got to keep together.
Yes.
If America was to drop like a stone, then England would drop like a stone.
Right.
Think about England. England ain't got no coffee in the ground. She ain't got no tobacco growing. If England had everything in the ground, would we have visited anywhere else? No. If we had our own tea, we wouldn't have invaded India. But then again, if we had everything, we would probably have invaded ourselves. Oh well, if I went to the jungle and I was very clever, I would be a missionary and be a person that helps others. But I'm not in a jungle, so I'll go to the library instead.
Do you know that's almost T-shirt worthy, isn't it? But I'm not in the jungle, so I'll go to the
I'll go to the
instead.
library. It's such a beautiful book.
But there's plenty of portraits of him in there as well, aren't there? I mean, that's
Loads.
obviously his quotes.
They're mostly portraits of him, but there's, for example, there's a picture
I like the
here.
simple ones, like his hand holding something.
Yeah, so he was a TV repairman and things like that. And
Oh, right.
there's a picture of him here, looking at the Olympic Stadium.
Oh, my word.
Full width page,
Yeah.
looking at the
What a
Olympic
very
Stadium.
lonely picture, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's when you look at the quote on the Olympics, we used to have cabinet makers and tailors and music halls. Now we have a big stadium. I'm not sure about it.
And he does look like he's not sure about it as well as he stands there. Do you know, he reminds me an awful lot, and we've talked about this chap before, called Terry, who walks past my drive. Most mornings I catch him. I assume he does it every single day. And for a while when I was being good at actually running each day, if I went out at 6 o'clock, I would see him on my return journey back from the town. Just always roughly the same place. And he carries, we call him the Co-op Man. We called him for a long, long time the Co-op Man, because he wore the same thing every day. He wore his high-vis council jacket and an Arsenal hat, and always holding a light blue co-op bag stuffed with, I don't know what was ever in the co-op bag. And one day I had to stop him and I said, hello, I see you walking along here every day. And the way I started to talk with him was because Arsenal had another one of their losses the night before. I said, shame about the Arsenal last night. He opened up and he talked about it. He said, yeah. And I said, what's your name? He said, it's Terry. Turns out Terry is the guy that cleans the loos every single day.
Oh, the public loos.
The public loos in my local town here. Every single day. That's all. It's what he's been doing for years and years. And he wanders from his house with his co-op bag full of, I'm guessing now, cleaning stuff.
Yeah.
Gets there, does what he needs to do there, and he walks back. And then later on in the afternoon, you see Terry do exactly the same. And even during the pandemic, when the loos were closed, Terry walked to the loos and then back again. And he reminds me of this chap that he must have an incredible story. I've just not been brave enough to ask him.
I know.
And that's what this chap did.
What would you, if you were in a TV show, what would you like to be in? If your real life,
Wow.
if like you had to
Bit left field.
put yourself in a TV show.
Really? I know I'd like to be, but
But your life would, the character, their life, that's what you'd live.
oh, I see.
I want to be, there's a reason
Go on
behind
then,
it.
tell me. I'm a bit lost with this one.
I want to be Compo in Last of the Summer Wine. I think I'd be good at being Compo in Last of the Summer Wine. Just
Actually, he
wandering
was-
around the countryside.
Yeah, he was-
with not a lot.
Do you
going
know
on.
what? He's laconic, but he'd come up with some of those expressions.
Absolutely, yeah. Compo, that's me. Gemma
If you
says
live in
that.
America or Australia, or any of our European towns and countries that listen to us, look up Compo, Last of the Summer
Yes.
Wine. COMPO, wasn't it?
That's my
Just Compo.
ambition in life, to be Compo
To
in
be
Last of the
Compo.
Summer Wine, yeah. But not.
Why was he
not
called
a-
Compo?
Well, I don't know. Must be something to do with his name. Maybe it was compost.
I was wondering, yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to have the lonely life, but I do find that very. The melancholic way of life is quite.
That would suit you, would it?
I think so.
You'd be all right.
Yeah, I think I'd be
Yeah.
all right in that.
All right.
Yeah.
Right, one last question. Molly Hewitt from Facebook. By the way, if you've been sending any questions by email, which are so important to click at fujicast.co.uk, you can also leave short questions right at the top. We popped it right at the top of the Facebook group. You can leave your questions there as well. Molly Hewitt did just that. What focus and AFC settings? I know we do a lot of focus and AFC settings, but as I say, I'm sure you don't listen to every single episode, so you may have missed the answer. What focus and AFC settings do you find work best for focusing on quickly moving subjects, i.e. grandchildren? I'm curious if you use back button focus during focus peaking in manual focus or autofocus. Go on, Kev, this has got you written all over it, this answer.
Well, I would it depends on how fast the grandkids are, of course, but let's assume they're pretty
They sound like
wickedly rapid.
rockets.
Yeah, I think I'd probably just use AFC, continuous focus.
Hold on, there goes a grandchild. They're off.
Look at the mess they left behind them. Look at that. Stuff everywhere.
I know.
Haven't even flushed the loo. I'd use AFC, and I wouldn't use the zone focusing
Would you
option in the camera,
Right.
because I just don't really get on with that. It can work. Continuous focus, tracking myself. So whip the camera into manual focus mode, use AFC, and that's really the way I do it. You can use the effectively AF on type stuff now in the newer cameras, so you can activate continuous focus by back button focus. I'm old school, so I just put it into manual focus mode and do it that way, though.
And away you go.
Back button focusing.
Thank you for your question. And that's it for this week. If you've liked this or any of the week's shows, if you feel it's relevant, we'd love you to leave a review. Some apps have it, some apps don't. In particular, Apple Podcast does, and it makes a real difference to know you're there, because we do read every single one, honest. If you can share the episode on Twitter or on Facebook, you are a star, and let us know where you're sharing, because we'd like to give those platforms a shout out too, as the youth say. See you in the Facebook group for any questions you may have about today's show. Play nice, of course. Our mods that we didn't mention the last couple of weeks, we should do, really. Steve?
Well, Steve had a question today.
Oh, Steve did, didn't he,
Oh,
Steve?
no,
Vaughan?
it was last week.
Or was that last week? Oh, well, these weeks go so fast, who knows? And Peter Kasbergen. Well, they're in there with their with their shiny FIFA referee whistles at standby. Send your questions to click@fujicast.co.uk. Music from Blue Wednesday. We're supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. And this week's book, of course, was, what was it called again? Have you got the title?
It was called
Hoxton Mini Press.
Hoxton Mini Press. I've lived in East London for 86 and a half years.
And it was the incredible one that started the whole thing. I suppose, really, I mean, the lovely story about this is that this started for him an entire business, didn't it, really?
Yeah.
Just by looking out of a window and thinking, I wonder what.
One final quote from him.
Go on.
For about 20 years, I made suitcases. My forearm was a bastard. Apart from that, it was okay. But if I was less heavy, you know what I'd like to be? I'd like to be a ballet dancer. That would be my dream.
Oh, well, I'll leave you with that thought. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.